All right, so in this video, I want to talk about a market leader and talk about on-page SEO with one of the big companies in the local Boise area. I know they're in a few states, and just look at some of the things that we can really gather and learn from their SEO and what might be working and just I think this is a good exercise. I try to do a lot of different competitor analysis um, on different levels, but I thought I'd go through one where I just kind of look at a site and look at some of what they're doing well and what we can glean from that. So this is Right Now. They used to be Right Now Heating and Air. They were bought out, I believe, by a um, investment group, and then they've tacked on these other services, right? Which is what a lot of private equity is doing right now. And there's a lot of money in this, right? So these guys are spending definitely. They have a lot going well for them. So right off the bat, not really an SEO thing, just so much as a usability, right? This is all huge. Everything that they have on this page is on the top in the navigation is really big, really easy to navigate. And I would assume they have a lot of customers who are older, right? So they're definitely making this easy for somebody who was over, you know, I don't want to put an age on it because then somebody is going to be offended, right? But somebody, older people who might have not as good of eyesight or something, this is all really huge. So I think they do that on purpose for their, to make sure all clients can easily navigate the website. We can see, this stands out. I would say they must have a lot of financing. I see they're using pink as kind of this standout color for the financing, and then for their kind of their coupon here, and then this kind of sticks out too. Their number of reviews, so they're really putting the reviews right there as well as the financing. So they must have had a lot of people go through financing. So I always like to look for what's sticking out on purpose, right? So we have the pink, and then their pink trucks. That's their slogan. The guys in the pink trucks, right? So that's kind of what I'm noticing here. Obviously, they have a ton of pages, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But let's go down. So they give us some coupons. They give us a slider with coupons. They give us their Google reviews badge that's pushing more of that, customer satisfaction, testimonials right up front. And then we get to their H1. And I think this lesson for me is something I continue to have to learn. You know, this says furnace heating repairs expert, Boise, Idaho. So this is what's interesting here is, one, they're using their H1 directly to target a service, and probably their most important service. And it's because these guys have seasonal changes. Their H1 is actually changing with the season, so that this is heating repairs. I wouldn't be surprised if, as it gets warmer, we're in winter right now. Once it warms up, then this changes to something for air conditioning repair, right? So you know, I think business owners and people want don't want to lose something, right? So we think, I have to put something in my H1 so that I can get air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electrical. I don't want to lose somebody. But the problem is, when we don't target something specifically, instead of doing really well at getting something, we do very, very good job at getting nothing. We end up going for everything to get nothing, instead of being specific and going after something to really kind of have a spearhead approach where there's something that we are targeting the most, and then a secondary, and then that kind of goes down, right, as to what's most important here. So we can see here that they put furnace repairs in their H1. They have it laid out a specific way, right, so that they can capture this. And then this is also something I've been seeing a lot. They don't just put their city. I see a lot of people putting just the city. And where I live, Boise, there's no other Boise, I don't think, in the United States, but that doesn't always translate. And so whether you're using the name of the state or a state code like ID, it really helps give Google the full picture if we use that state. And so I've had to work to implement the state code or the state name in every city page, on every page that I'm mentioning cities. You got to make sure you tell Google the state as well, because there's a lot of cities that are there's a city in this state, a city in this state with the same name, right? So using that really helps Google. We don't want Google to have to guess. We want Google to know for a certainty the information we're trying to tell it. So you want to always use that state. Then they have the rest of their links over here, linking to different services they offer, electrical, plumbing. So we'll talk about the services. Then they're using a ton of H2s, which I found to be interesting. I try to only use one H2, but these are all H2s. So they come down here, they have offers again, that get financing button, more information. This one's a little more narrow, so or a little more broad. I think what they do here is change the top as the seasons change, and then they can leave the rest of the website pretty much the same. So here they talk about heating and air conditioning, which is also interesting, right? Because they do electrical and they do plumbing, but they want to make sure that above that, it's like they want to make sure heating and air is primary, right? They don't want to lose that. Then if they can get some plumbing and electrical in the back of that, that's great, right? But you can really tell that heating and air conditioning is what they want to make sure they are ranking well for. So they have heating and repair. We have Boise, Idaho again, right? And then they talk about the services. They got this giant request now. I don't really like when these forms are bigger than the page, especially with so little information that you're putting in. But once again, they're catering to somebody. They're going to make sure that it's easy for people to put their information in here, which I think is smart. They don't have a lot of photos, but I did like that, once again, this is a real photo. I think oftentimes for me too, I'm like, man, I want the photos to look really nice and snappy, but I think about local commercials. They're always so like grainy and awful, right? But they must work for businesses, right? So I think the local feel, as much as it seems more raw, I think it works, right? It's working for them, and I think it must send messages. I'm not very good at putting myself in the shoes of the local customer, right? But I always kind of have this design mentality, but I do think it's interesting here that they put up front and center just a picture of one of their people shaking a hand, right? Very obviously taken with probably a phone or something. It's not highly edited. It's just a regular neighborhood. So I think you want to use your raw photos, right? You want to put yourself out there up front and center. Then they have some of these service guarantees, right? Transparent pricing, the kind of badges you see on there. And here is where they also start targeting the plumbing and electrical up here. So HVAC services, all brands we work on. And I'll get into this again, but man, the amount of content that's on this website is crazy. Then they have this map that shows a ton of reviews and where they've gotten those. I think this whole approach here is interesting. They're very focused on showing you how many people they've worked with. And something like this, man, it doesn't work very well. It's really hard to navigate. It's got a ton of data in it, right? Um, it's almost more annoying than it is helpful, but I do see the benefit here, right? It's just an explosive amount of testimonials with the actual addresses of people on here. You can click on one, it shows you their response, that they have a what we did, right? A little write up. Then they have the testimonial from the customer and their response. Then they also tag that with residential and what the type of service was. And so they have this whole map dedicated to that. So, once again, putting testimonials, showing you have real clients, showing those front and center is something that works really well. They have a few picked select testimonials here on the slider. So, yeah, they got some blog posts, and that, then in the footer they have a map of their location. This is their most primary location. They have a ton of locations. So, but they do still select one location, which I thought was interesting. These guys have a ton of locations, right? They have, let's see here. Well, I'm pretty certain they have even just 4 in the Boise area. So I'm pretty sure they have a dozen or more locations. But they still just choose one, their primary initial location with the Boise address, right? With their Boise address here, that phone number, right? A link to reviews. And then once again, that same Boise address again, some of their business license information, and the Google map, which I find interesting because once again, I think what is there? Everybody wants to put all of the information so they get all of the search results, but they're being very specific about saying where is our biggest customer base and where is the most competitive. And Boise is a very competitive market. It's where these guys started, and they probably get the majority of their business from Boise and Boise searches. So they are, once again, they're targeting the city of Boise first and allowing the other locations, the other things they do, the service areas they offer to come in secondary. And they still do well, but I just think there's something to learn from this. If we could get one thing, what would it be? Then, what's second, what's third, what's fourth, and being very deterministic about what's most important to your business and then what goes down the line there. So that is the homepage. Now let's just briefly go through the content pages and how much they have. So these guys have a ton of content. They have all of these cooling pages, right? So you can see they have a service page. They have some information about what they offer. I don't know what these are. Maybe they were supposed to be image buttons that are broken, or I don't know what that is, but. And these pages are kind of landing page-esque with information. They have a ton of, these sidebars. They've got more information, career information, these lists here with all the other cooling services, right? So links to all the other cooling services. I don't see any links in the text at all. Maybe there's a reason for that they have, but I would definitely have some text links. But they do have this. They do have a little menu to all the other services in the cooling service sector, or at least most of them. So they have all these cooling services, right? They're very detailed pages. All their heating services, very detailed pages, plumbing, electrical. They have a coupons page. And then I think this is where, I think most people have really good service pages You want to have a lot of service pages. You want to make sure you talk about every service you offer in detail. I think that's a great idea. But I think where the About Us pages are really interesting is I don't think a lot of people do this or do this well. They have no problems creating a lot of different About Us pages with really good information. So they have the guys in the pink trucks. That's their little moniker, right? So they have a page about the guys in the pink trucks that's really short here. They have their products, and this is where it's like, oh man, these guys are really spending a lot of time making sure they're putting all the information out there for their customers. You can see they have a product page for each of their products, which goes through, talks about the product, what it is, what it does, what they offer, what are the benefits. And they have that for, easily more than 20 different products. It's a lot of products they have listed here. So, obviously educating your customers about what you do and what you offer and the products you use is a great way to create strong content around your brand. Service area, this is a common page for people, but here's where you can see all of their service pages that they've created. So, and they're not microing down too much. I would think, some businesses I see, they're creating all of their service pages as each of these would be in each city. So Boise Electric Furnaces, Caldwell Electric Furnaces, Eagle Electric Furnaces. I don't know. I think you have to just do what works. Look at the people that you're trying to rank against and what they're doing. These guys have a ton of pages just from using heating and the city, cooling and the city, plumbing in the city, electrical in the city. And then they don't even have the plumbing and the electrical in every one of these. They don't have the heating and cooling in every one of these. So it's interesting how they've sectioned this out. I don't know if they're targeting different things with different locations or how that works. But you can see there are just a ton. This is their Treasure Valley, all their Treasure Valley, Magic Valley, all of the Magic Valley cities, Eastern, all of the Eastern cities, Washington, all the Oregon. So quite a bit of content around their cities. And then they have, once again, this is interesting, right? In heating, their heating page is not called Boise Heating, right? It's called Boise Furnace Repair. So they have furnace repair as their primary heating. Their cooling is just Boise Cooling. Okay, that one's Caldwell AC Repair. AC Repair. AC Repair. So that's interesting. So they're doing that same thing, right? They're not, plumbing is more, plumbing and electrical, the things they added later, right? After years and years of doing heating and cooling, they added these plumbing and they're more generic, right? But it is interesting, right? Once again, even though it says heating and cooling, they're targeting a specific search: furnace repair and AC repair. So they've determined that for us, the most important things we want to rank for are going to be the city with furnace repair and AC repair. Those are our primary targets. We're going to make the pages that way. They're going to have the slug be that way, and we're going to target those specific services. They do have heating service as a more generic term for the H1. Let's see if that's the same way for cooling. So air conditioning services. So they're using the slug to give that target there, but they're still making the pages a little more generic. So let's go through one of these pages. can see we have the city, right? Eagle. They're making sure to mention Idaho. I find, I usually see people using Idaho ID or the state in the slugs at the top and in the actual descriptions as well. So it's interesting that they're not. They do have it here in this second header below the H1. This is something I'm seeing on a lot of pages. Obviously, putting a map from Google to just the city map. And then, information about their services, what they offer, a picture. I was looking at these. I think they might be, I don't know if they're not naming the photos or if I just when I try to download them, maybe they have something. I don't know how that works. But it's interesting to me that when I go to download the photo, it doesn't have a title, right? But that could be something I'm not aware of. I guess I should inspect the element, right? That's the way to do it. So let's see here. Yep, Microsoft Teams image. So they're not even titling their images necessarily, which that's something they could be doing to really help here, right? Their images should be titled something related. Their alt text should be something related to the page, not Microsoft Teams 50, right? Image 50, that doing nothing for them, right? So you can always find, if you look through your competitors, I think you can find things that you can do better, right? So, but yeah, so information here, reviews, brands, links to all the brand pages, links to all the air conditioning service pages. That seems to be something I see a lot, is you don't need to have specific service pages necessarily for each city. Just link to your primary services pages from your city pages in some kind of a menu. They are linking to the brands they work on. This is something I'm going to have to mess around with some more. And then we have a truck in your neighborhood. I don't know if this is supposed to be putting like a truck. Maybe trucks show up on this. I don't know what this is for. And then I think this is so interesting, right? Down here at the bottom of each service page, they have listed a few, what it looks like a person, when the job was done, a little bit of information about what the job was, their cross streets or something about their location without putting their exact location, and a photo from that job, just to further is this just an image too? Just to further solidify we're doing business in the area, right? And then they can put some keywords. They have a city, right? So I think that's interesting that they're doing this, just to try to further give Google those signals that we're in the area doing work consistently for customers. Here's the kind of work we're doing in that city. And then we get to the footer. So yeah, so that's a city page. So tons of product pages, tons of these city pages, and then some code of ethics, frequently asked questions. Let's take a look at this. So just some regular frequently asked questions, and then a blog. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of how many articles they have on the blog. It looks like 14 pages of so 14. So, somewhere around 50, 60 pages, right? Cool. Now, this is the last thing I wanted to look at. This is their recent projects page. Just another way they are sending a ton of data to Google about them being local. So here they do the exact same thing, right? They have their map that we looked at earlier, but they have all of the jobs from this map listed by city, which you can click on a city and it'll filter by the city. and and then you get these HVAC job in Boise, a description of the project, the review straight from Google, and a reply from the company with then a little tag here, residential HVAC. And they have so many of these on this page. It's insane. Hundreds and hundreds of these. Basically, I think every review they've ever received, or every job matches up to a review, which matches up on this page with a description from this tech about the job. I mean, the amount of content that's on this page is insane, and it's all specific content that talks about the jobs they do, that talks about the cities they work in, that shows customers excited about it, with a map pin showing exactly where they are in the city and with a tag about the type. So I think implementing something like this, I'm trying to figure out if this is something they did on their own or if this is a plugin of some kind that they purchased. I know there's a few companies that do similar things to this, but the amount of signals that they must be sending here with a page like this back to Google about what they offer and customers and location-based data, right? I mean, that's what it's really all boils down to, right? Is showing Google a lot of information about your location, what you do, what you offer. And this is such a great way to do that. And then, they have the careers page. I think that seems to be on a lot of bigger businesses. It seems to be a helpful, I think it does help showcase another level of professionalism, having that careers page. So I think this is a great example. I'm not trying to get too deep into each page and links on the page and all that, but I think generally as a structure of how you should be structuring your website for local, the website is a huge piece of local dominance, and I think this is a great overview of how to do on page and really structure your website to win in your local area. So that's what I'm going to talk about. That's all I'm going to talk about for now. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks.